Welcome to Tony at 12. I'm Tony LeBlanc, and today I'm in conversation with Professor Michael Mainelli, Chairman of ZEN Group and President of the London Chamber of Commerce and Industry, late Lord Mayor of London, 2023 to 24, which made you number 695 on the list.
You're counting very well, Tony. And I'm not late. I'm just a little tardy, okay?
Okay, okay. First of all, the experiences as Lord Mayor. You did a lot of travelling, didn't you? 100 days to 25 countries, 100,000 miles in the air. Tell me all about it.
Well, it's sometimes difficult to believe you're really the Lord Mayor of London if you spend that much time out of it. Um, but it was fascinating. I mean, the key element of the trips is that the Lord Mayor is there to establish the connections. In fact, that was my theme, connect to prosper, that help bring people to London and do business through London. So that's an important part of the job. And every Lord Mayor has done it, and I'm no exception. The planning begins quite a ways out, about a year out, as we try and figure out what are the strategic issues to do. And in fact, I think it would be very difficult to double, triple, quadruple the amount of travel given the demand for the Lord Mayor to come and visit. But there are limits to it. 25 countries is roughly average, and about 100 days is roughly average, and what we've looked at it over the years. What I was trying to achieve during the year was to change the narrative a little bit, particularly with Brexit, and to refocus on many of our neighbors in Europe. So while a Lord Mayor might do two, three, or four trips to Europe, I actually made nine.
Right.
I also had to pick up a couple of new countries because you want to. Not exactly on my bucket list, but new countries for the mayoralty. So it was the first Lord Mayor to visit Iceland, first Lord Mayor to visit Laos. So that was really quite interesting as well. What do the visits consist of? Well, you arrive, you're greeted most warmly. I can't think of a single place where the greeting wasn't enthusiastic, warm, friendly. And you go and you meet typically ministers, business people, trade and policy people. And your job there really is to sell the idea of open and fair trade. That's probably one of the four enduring themes of the city, as I like to call it: open, fair trade, access to talent and skills, rule of law, and of course, defense and security are what make our city over 1,000 years old. So it was very, very good fun, but it is quite hectic. If I
Yeah.
give you just one taster, maybe would be Laos. So Laos was the extension of a trip through Vietnam. So we've been to Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi, which had also been pretty intense trips. We leave in the afternoon of a Thursday from Hanoi, fly in to Vientiane, and then immediately you are greeted by the ambassador. She's very concerned to make sure that things go well. We're having the meeting of the ASEAN economic ministers, and you begin with a debriefing meeting, followed by a closed meeting because you have to wear those lovely, they do have those lovely shirts there, uh, followed by a speech, followed by dinner, followed by another speech to get up the next morning for a further briefing. Then to meet all 10 of the ASEAN economic ministers, to meet four or five Laotian meetings, to quickly nip out for ceremonial luncheon, followed by a tour of a temple for some photo shots, followed by the banquet in the evening with all the ASEAN ministers and the photographs there, only to try and board a plane at 1 in the morning to get to Shanghai to get home. Not untypical.
No, very interesting from that point of view. I mean, presumably you think of Asia as the growth area for the future.
Well, we have obviously deal in short, medium, and long term.
Yeah.
Um, and things have actually gotten shorter since I left office, given the turmoil at the moment in geopolitical trade relations. So that's there. Asia has been doing, and there are many parts of Asia that have still not been fully developed in terms of their potential for trade with the UK and others. So Laos would be coming up. Vietnam is very much coming up. We have not done enough, in my opinion, with Indonesia. There's a lot yet to be done in Asia, and hopefully some of the areas in Asia, Myanmar, etc., will come on at some point. So a lot yet to go there. Africa, always about to happen. South America, very traditional trading partners in Chile, Argentina, Colombia, Brazil, Peru. It's a big world, and
Absolutely.
and, uh, and the Lord Mayor doesn't do it all. It's very much down to the Department of Business and Trade to do the bulk of that work. But we try and provide support where we can, and an emphasis on the City of London.
So, what was your longest trip, distance-wise?
Well, the longest trip strictly would have been Japan. So
Yeah.
we had a dual trip through Singapore and up on into Japan. I guess that was technically the longest in the sense of timing. It was also probably one of the longer. You can really only leave the city for a week at a time. There's just far too much to support in the city. But I think that to me, the nicest thing about all those trips is just the genuine feeling that London is the world's global city. I think everybody, when they look at the world and they look at their own boundaries, so if you're in Canada and you're in Toronto, you're sort of, well, there's obviously Alberta and Vancouver, but going the other way, oh, and then there's London. London is always the first stop on everybody's mind is the one city that they go to outside of their own. And that idea that we're kind of the world's coffee house that came across in all of the meetings that I went to.
And that's interesting because I was speaking to Nigat a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying there's business coming back actually from the east part of London into the city again. Is that correct?
Very, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, the city of London is thriving. If I can be candid, it's going to sound a bit like a sales pitch, but I tended to
Never.
get it in the neck about two topics when I was traveling. One was the listed equity markets, which everyone sort of thinks you control, and I keep trying to explain that the City of London is about 40% finance and professional services. It's about 25% science, engineering, and technology. It's also about 25% education, media, culture, and the remaining 10%, well, 5% of that is shipping. We remain the world's largest shipping services center, even though we've lost our port twice, once to Tilbury and now out to Dubai ports, London Gateway. But the point is that it's a rich city with a lot of things in it. But if you want to look strictly at one factor, since Brexit 9 years ago, our workforce has increased from 525,000 to 678,000. That's an enormous increase. In fact, it increased 10% during my year, which I'll take full credit for, obviously.
You should. You should.
What politician wouldn't? Um, the second thing, though, is that you might, in a jokey mood, say, "Well, that's all compliance." No, it's not. In fact, global assets under management managed in London grew from 11% over that same 9 year period to 13%. So 2% of global assets under management is a very large number. And Nagat is absolutely correct to emphasize just the sheer scale of business going through the city from the west, from the east, from everywhere really, and the boundaries of the city are thriving as well.
We did see a few big companies decide to move out of London and relist in New York. Was that an issue at the time, or do you think that's stabilized?
Well, it's always been an issue, and to be honest, the way I've expressed it is that it's to kind of misunderstand the city. It's easy for, I think, journalists and outsiders to focus on a number, and the stock exchange provides a daily number. So
Mm.
it's not surprising people focus on it. However, let me just kind of paint a large picture of the flows of capital that we see coming through the city. The first thing is we are a city of small businesses. Of our 25,000 businesses, 24,750 are SMEs. So we only have 250 large businesses. We are not the business of large domestic banks. Over half the UK banking industry is not located in the city. They service the local market. We do, on the other hand, have 250 banks, and they're overseas banks, branches overseas banks, family banks, and a lot of that. I wouldn't say they're small, and many of them have a small office, but are gargantuan banks in their own right. But they're transacting trade through here.
Yeah.
Next thing we have listed equity, which is what the exchange is about, but we also have private equity. We also have corporate lending. So there's a whole bunch of that. We've got sovereign bonds of various forms. We do 40% of global FX trade. And again, a lot of that is through the smaller players. We have interdealer brokers, and then we move into insurance. Then we have reinsurance and the brokerage associated with that, the claims management and the functions in those areas. And I often pick on one example, the protection and indemnity mutuals. These are insurers based in the city. There are roughly 12 of them with about 95% of the market globally. And most of these firms are about 100 people. So it's a very rich ecosystem there, if I can use that much abused word, where you can't pick at it and say, well, oh, listed equities. Now, that said, we have a listed equities problem in the sense that we would like that to thrive. It's not like I don't care about it. But if you analyze the listed equity markets globally, they're all in a bit of trouble. There are many theories as to why the rise of the dark pools, other equity, shadow banking, overregulation, ESG requirements, a cartel in the sense or oligopoly of auditing and professional services for listed companies. So a lot of theories about why it's not working, but globally it's not working. And I think one of the figures is if you take the big seven out of the American NASDAQ system, even NASDAQ hasn't performed that well over the last 2 decades. It's comparable with the London Stock Exchange. But I do protest too much, but I just want to point out that it's a tiny element, an important one of a very, very large ecosystem.
I had a look at your end of term report. And one thing that I was quite fascinated about, and hopefully you'll be able to give me a bit more information on it, were the Lord Mayor's initiatives. Now, are they debate or action or a combination of both?
The initiatives were projects. They were begun about 3 years ago, a year and a half before I took office. I wanted to lay out sort of some major projects we wanted to
Yeah.
get going, and I picked six. And I called them initiatives as a word just to say, let's see what happens.
Mm.
In truth, they were fairly well planned out. In truth, I had enormous support. Each initiative had a chairman, and the chairs were excellent and really drove the projects forward. They consisted of an eclectic mix. I think all of them had within them the idea of showing that London is a place that can solve global problems. That was the core
Yeah. Yeah.
purpose of them. So we picked on AI, which we can come back to. Space debris was a second one. The quality of mental health research was a third. The conversion of buildings into laboratories, which has been lacking a standard, was a fourth. Every Lord Mayor does something on sustainability. And finally, my sixth one was smart economy networks.
Yeah.
I was ecstatic at all of the progress that was made in all of them. They were all six of them really, really good. Um, so, in the sense of the AI initiative, we were trying to alert people that whilst regulation may be needed, we already have a regulatory system in the International Standards Organization under ISO 42001. We're now up to 20,000 people took a course that we designed. 33 trillion of the ICGN, the International Corporate Governance Network, have signed up to the idea of 42001. And I think it's now up to 65 countries are participating in something called the AI quality infrastructure running out of Barcelona. So AI and the use of 42001 very successful. Space debris, we created the Space Protection Initiative. We had enormous assistance from the insurance sector. AHJ, Lloyd's reinsurance broker, presented us with an invitation to treat letter for $500 million per operator for
Wow.
coming from six global underwriters. So that's a lot of pledging. And that's semi-legal pledging.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
a nice note. It's an actual contractual note. We got letters of support from a whole variety of people, but most importantly, the 56 nations of the Commonwealth signed an agreement called Common Space that they would use these space debris retrieval insurance bonds as a condition of launch. And the way the bonds work, they're like surety bonds that you would use for maritime. If you want to put a structure up, you've got to pledge to get it down. But I
Mm.
want you to put some money on the table, but I don't trust you because you might just go bust conveniently. What I want to see is an insurer backing it. Galanos was the mental health project that's running like a freight train. Wellcome Trust has come behind it. And what we've done over the last 2 years is what's called an ontology in mental health research, basically the network of all the papers and research that's being done and trying to pick out the strong spots and the weak spots. That's leading to suggestions on new treatment for PTSD and things like that.
Yeah.
Constructing science was the converting buildings into laboratories. That's now become kind of the de facto standard. So that was done. On sustainability, lots been going on, but in particular, we launched something called the City Carbon Credit Cancellation Service, and that permits people to go on and purchase as little as a kilogram of real of real ETS credits, as opposed to some of these somewhat dubious projects scientifically on sequestration. So you can go on and purchase as little as you like, really, or as much. And then finally, smart economy networks, possibly the one that still needs some work, and I'm trying to nudge along the pushing along the discussions about dematerialization of trade documentation.
So all of these are sort of running simultaneously, and they make representations to the corporation, do they, from time to time, or
Um,
presentations?
to be honest, the corporation is just one party amongst them. The corporation doesn't own these initiatives;
No.
they kind of own themselves. And in each case, we've now had permanent bodies set up um, in the AI, constructing science. The Galanos mental health is a permanent project. In the city carbon credit cancellation scheme, the two that haven't got permanent continuing bodies are the Space Protection Initiative, although I'm working on that. In fact, I'll be flying to the States next month to present at the Aircraft Builders Conference what they ought to be doing in this area. And in the Smart Economies Network, there is, in fact, a permanent entity, and it's out there seeking some funding. I have no shares in it, but I'm pleased that people picked these initiatives up and ran with them, four of them going brilliantly, and two, we're still nudging along a little bit.
That's great. That really is. And I mean, looking at the mental health scheme, to actually get Welcome on board must have been quite a coup.
I wish I could say it was a coup that I had anything to do with. Um, it was really done with one of our partners was the MQ Mental Health, a wonderful charity, and Lee Milligan, who was then the CEO, sadly, tragically passed away quite young whilst I was in office. Um, he was the one who landed Welcome's interest, although Welcome had helped set up MQ, but it's going great guns, and I think it's a very important initiative to bring um, rigor into the mental health research field, but also to improve the connectivity in the field so that people are providing better, more impactful research. It's a really good program.
Right, let's move on to your current um, task, which is president of the London Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Is that an annual job in terms of representation, or what? How's it work?
Well, I'm the president, so there's a
Yeah,
chairman, Julia, and a CEO, Kareem, and the three of us, are finding our feet together, as you'd expect. I'm sort of just over half a year in. It's a 3-year position and may well continue or not. Um, there was probably never a time in my living memory when we needed a chamber of commerce functioning well in London, and the chamber is functioning pretty well. For your listeners, the London Chamber is a very old chamber, dates back technically to the 1820s, but it was reconstituted in, I believe, 1881. So even then, it's an old body, and one of the original chambers in the world. And it does more than just being a talking shop, although there's a talking shop element to it. Anybody who wishes to be a member, please join. And we do what most membership organizations would have, which is publications, advice, services, databases, all there to help and facilitate trade within the UK, trade, within the Greater British Isles, and international trade. So it's a very trade focused everything. We have policy suggestions on a wide variety of fronts, but they all tend to come back to trade. So we would look at airports in the sense of London needs great airports, but they're impeding us in trade. It's that kind of link. The functions, though, that we perform are things like the certificates of origin, the carnet system, which is effectively an insurance scheme that proves that you will, when you bring an object, you're traveling with an orchestra, you're traveling to a trade show with a high spec automobile. You don't want to be paying tax to bring it into the country and then try and reclaim it getting it out. And the carnet basically says, we, the chamber, guarantee that this person, Tony, is going to bring his cello in, play it, and leave and
Yeah,
take it with him. So
yeah.
he's not going to sell it. And finally, we provide arbitration and mediation for dispute resolution, particularly in new and emerging areas. For example, some of the bounty systems for IT, some of the things to do with digital assets, and things to do with new green products. We are the arbitration mediation center for a lot of that. So
Wh-
it's a very active chamber.
What's the definition of industry then in the title?
Well, it's the old style of industry, meaning the economy. Yeah, no, it very much encompasses services, manufacturing, etc. I mean, when you look at the United Kingdom, as you'd be aware, the government has made great hay out of the 8 new industrial strategies, and those are superb. And we're happy to see some industrial strategies or direction coming out, and they seem to be quite realistic. But there are and these are things like the defense sector, digital, creative industries, those. But London has at least three that aren't really focused upon in the government strategy. That would be education, which is gargantuan in London, with well, nearly 100 universities in London of various forms. People forget it's not just the domestic; it's the international. The second area is hospitality and tourism, which the government doesn't have as it's one of its core strategies, but we need that in London.
Yeah, of course.
And and that those and then finally construction is a big one. So those three are tacked onto the government's 8, and those are the industries that we are focused on at the moment, but focused on pretty much all of London's commerce.
Does the chamber do a lot of lobbying to Westminster?
Yes, we do. We're one voice amongst many.
Yeah.
There's Business London, London and Partners, CBI, IOD, Federation of Small Businesses. Everybody's sort of lobbying, but our particular focus is trade. So, if we're talking about rubbish on the streets, which we do, and we'd like to see the streets cleaner, it's because it helps trade to have better streets.
Now, we were just talking earlier about, in your capacity as Lord Mayor, trying to bring business and succeeded in bringing business into London. But I'm just wondering, where does the property market sit on this? Because it's very, very expensive to actually live in London. Is
Mm.
that likely to put off new arrivals, or is money no
Well,
object?
yeah, one of the great problems in life is you can be a victim of your own success.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm old enough to remember London in the 70s when it was very cheap to live in London comparatively, but it was not, it was pretty squalid in places. So as you get more successful, everybody wants to move there and property prices rise. So you've got your difficulties. I think there's several areas in property that we are interested in. Firstly, in London, we want good functioning premises for businesses and residents. That kind of goes without saying.
yeah.
But then beneath that, you need very good infrastructure. So there's no point in having a wonderful building or flat if you can't get to the places that you need to get to. So it's a kind of a combination of all that. We also want a very good urban environment. Um, and then we get into the complexities of any large city, not just London. New York is the same with its boroughs and all this, but we do have 32 boroughs in London, plus the City of London Corporation. So within the corporation, our focus tends to be much more on the workers because we have 678,000 workers, as I said, and 8,000 residents. So there's a heavy skew
Yeah.
towards ensuring that the businesses are there and working on that business environment. In turn, the city owns just over 15% of the city itself. So we have an interest as a landowner in ensuring that the value of that goes up. It's in many ways a land value tax situation. The next thing, of course, is looking at the wider London area where residential comes into this very, very heavily. One of my proposals, which I've been lobbying government as CN, has been on brownfield land, trying to make sure that through a series of indemnity schemes, brownfield land is used in preference to greenfield land. It is cheaper, but you need to indemnify the new owner that the environmental contamination that might be there can be dealt with. So we're working on some progress there. We then, of course, have some other difficulties in London, which is that everybody wants to have doctors and nurses and teachers, etc. And then for some reason, we seem to be running these national schemes on setting their pay, which then means that you have to rebias their pay to compensate them for the fact that they're trying to work in an expensive urban environment. So we've got very, very strange market forces at play, and it's very, very hard to unpick and look at just straightforward economics as a solution. So it's high on the list of everything that we do. It's one of the reasons we brought property and construction into added it to the 8 industrial sectors that the government had. But I don't see any quick and easy fixes.
Didn't put this on the list, but how about the third runway at Heathrow? Are you pro that? Sorry, it's a
I don't
curveball.
know.
I apologize.
I don't know. I mean, certain politicians have said that they'd go and die from the steamrollers or something.
Well, that wouldn't be a bad thing.
Oh, no, sorry, I may disappoint you. That's not me.
But
Um,
we are agreed though that London needs more capacity in terms of getting planes in and out.
yeah, air travel is crucial to being a
Yeah,
global city. Just
yeah,
be absolutely candid about it. And as you know, we've had the Thames Airport discussions. We've had the third runway. We've had extensions at Gatwick, Luton, Stansted, all being discussed. City Airport as well, one of my favorites, about 3 miles down the road. I use it constantly. Um, we need more capacity. There are some interesting suggestions. One I made about 7 or 8 years ago was you could, in fact, extend some of the other airports and maybe turn London using a maglev train running roughly around the M25. You could, in fact, service most of the airports within 30 minutes. And so you could maybe make the maglev train airside, just a kind of a larger vision of the little trundly
yeah.
one you see at many airports, Dallas, Fort Worth, or whatever. You could maybe consider that. Um, but one of the disappointing things is how long this is taking, and this is an endemic problem that the government has recognized as part of number one mission is growth, and supposedly planning is the number one thing beneath that. We'll have to see, but I do recall back in 2012 chairing an air conference, yes, and I do mean 13 years ago, an air conference in Shanghai, where I think that was when was it Howard Davies had just launched his review of the third runway, and the Chinese who'd flown up, who knew the sector from Cathay Pacific, sort of went, "Yeah, here we go again."
Yeah, that's the
uh,
problem, isn't it?
and the audience was aghast that they would speak so candidly. But I think 13 years on, they were right.
What's wrong with Northolt
Nothing wrong with it to me. I'm not close
and
enough
your
to.
train?
Oh no, the train would run through. In fact, if I should probably send you the thing. It's quite interesting. You've got Northolt's on my list.
Yep.
So is Farnborough, Farnham.
Yep.
You know, Gatwick, Biggin Hill,
Mm.
City. You actually see that. Wow, there's a circle, but it's a big circle. So you would need some very, very fast transit to do that. And if you do it with a pencil and paper and look at the genuine end-to-end times, including stops, that some of the existing maglevs have got, it's a very doable project. But it also means still building some more runways. So,
Mm.
but maybe the runway is not the third runway at Heathrow. Maybe, it might well be the second or third runway at Gatwick or Luton or what have you.
Well, Gatwick's
But
an obvious candidate, isn't it? Because all you do is use the emergency runway, which somebody
correct.
actually landed on accidentally on one occasion, apparently. Big jet. Um, but it's already there, Michael. It doesn't take that much, does it, really, to sort of activate something like that?
Yeah. No, there's a political will issue, I think, and the country is going through a period of frustration, and has been for a while. And I'm quite positive we'll get out of it.
Yeah,
But organizations like the London Chamber, like the City of London Corporation, like my own firms, yeah, they've got to keep pushing and providing leadership that this can get done. We've got a lot of examples around the world. I mean, when you look at examples of people getting stuff done, one of the things I point out, and somewhat of a contrast with Grenfell. Grenfell was a horrible tragedy in what was it, 2017, um, and over 70 people lost their lives. But it was a year later in Genoa that they also had the Morandi Bridge
yeah,
collapse, and
yeah,
40 some odd people lost their lives as well. The new bridge was up and running in 23 months.
yeah. Grenfell's still
Yeah,
undecided.
and bridge crosses it crossed over the top of the entire city. So if you want to, you can get it done. And I think
Yeah,
we've got to challenge ourselves a little bit more, to say that, hey, it's not, oh, you've got to understand our problems. No, we have to understand our problems, and we can look out and see what other people have done to solve them. And maybe there are things we can learn from others, or even just the challenge of others,
yeah.
and trying to be competitive. So I'd like to see just that little bit extra competition. But certainly we're all talking about it.
And what I would like to see is that when you come up with something that's relatively new, like for example the cladding they put on the flats, you make sure that it's not going to catch fire in the way that it did. And if you sort of go anywhere around Woking, for example, all of the blocks of flats are being reclad. Now, what a
Mm.
waste of money!
Well, the Grenfell inquiry, and the discussions of the golden thread, etc., was to try and stop this kind of faux professionalism.
Yeah,
And there were definite failures at Grenfell. The testing system, failed in a variety of ways, and there's been a lot of work done on that. We've also seen, of course, I mean, some of the things at Grenfell were intriguing, like the the cladding was tested for certain conditions. And again, I'm not an expert on this, but it
no,
was like for 10 or 15-meter stretches. But some of the diagrams were showing like 30, 40-meter stretches. So, technically an engineer should have gone and ticked all those things off. But
yeah.
real human beings look at a picture and go, oh, it's a 30-meter stretch. I guess it's good for that. And so we've got a lot of little things like that to do. But the inquiry's going on. It's published, and people are working at improving all of that. However, you can't stop an entire nation while you wait for improvements and changes. We
Yeah,
do need
yeah,
to
yeah.
keep moving.
Now, my view is that you should do it properly in the first place, rather than,
Yeah,
you know,
but,
and
but
and
but
and
mistakes
you
will always
save a
be
lot of
made.
money.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Anyway,
I think to some degree,
I
you've
have
done
to
a good
now
point.
ask you, Michael, your future personal plans. Got 3 years as president of the Chamber of Commerce. What's on after that?
Well, at the moment, I am working on a whole variety of things. Probably the biggest one is a group of interested parties are looking at forming a foundation to help achieve high impact projects. And I think a lot of the things you're talking about improvement, and doing things right the first time need a lot more experimentation up front, but
Yeah.
there may not be commercial benefit in doing it. So we're looking at things like, can we try out new devices and new techniques in medium-sized projects? And then when they've been proved, then we've released it. And trying to, the working title for this is Project Dent. We want to make a dent or an impact in some of these problem areas. We're looking, therefore, for projects that haven't quite crossed the line. And
Okay.
everybody sort of said, well, maybe we'll do that next year.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do that next year. So,
Yeah.
well, let's get it out there. Let's try it. If it works, then we can use it. If it doesn't work, then we should not use it. And I think more of that type of experimentation might equally help on some of the things you were talking about getting things right first time. Getting things right first time means doing a lot of experimentation and testing in front.
So, do you think you'll ever retire?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what
I
retirement means.
don't think you will. I don't think you will. I
Yeah,
think you'll always find something.
there's plenty of fun stuff to do, and I've also got a lot of social things as well as the Alderman, ZN,
Yeah,
LCCI,
yeah,
charities.
yeah, yeah,
I've taken
yeah,
over as
yeah.
president of the Club de Londra, helping on Italian connections, which is great. Getting back into boating again. And I would
Yes,
just love
one
to
day
see.
you'll arrive.
One day I would just love to see some of the wonderful things we can do with the Channel Islands.
Yeah,
One of my proposals last year was a British Irish Isles finance group
yeah,
to promote the fact that we actually sell a joint product. And I'd love to tackle tidal energy, as you know, and we'll see what's happening in Alderley once. And I have great hopes for that.
yeah. Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sparing me some time on a bank holiday, ladies and gentlemen, I have to add. And I've really enjoyed it as ever. We'll do
Oh,
another
Tony.
one, in the not too distant future.
Well, thank
Meantime,
you so much.
take care of yourself and please convey my apologies to Elizabeth.
No trouble. Cheers,
I'll
Tony.
take the blame. Cheers. Bye bye.